Welcome to this very special edition of our broadcast. We're actually going to be showing you a segment of a movie that we produced through ACLJ Films. It involves the story of a person that has worked with us in the past named Ash. He'll be narrating this story. He found out later in life that he was almost aborted. This is his story, a very unique perspective on the issue of life.
When I was about 15, I was watching TV with my mom, and there were some protesters laying in front of a clinic being arrested. I told her how silly they all seemed, and then she dropped a bomb on me. She told me that in the middle of 1972, she had almost aborted me. My life had been spared because abortion was illegal and she was too scared of an underground clinic. When I started talking to people about the politics of abortion, one thing that kept coming up over and over was the effect of abortion on minorities.
The pro-life issue is not new to the black community. It is something that we grew up being aware of, that there was this group that wanted to abort babies.
I heard the staggering statistics of the decimation, literally the decimation of the African American community by the abortion industry. And I was just taken back.
Demographers have told us that it takes about 2.5 kids per family to replace itself. In the Hispanic community, of course, they're doing 3 to 4 kids per family. In the white community, about 2 kids per family. In the black community, it's 0.9. Heart disease, cancer, accidents, HIV/AIDS, none of them combined compare with the number of babies that are being murdered.
40 years from now, we won't have to worry about it because we won't be in America. We just won't be, we'll be extinct.
We're the only ethnic group, by the way, in the country and in some places the world that are beneath the replacement level.
Planned Parenthood and Margaret Sanger, who was the founder of that organization, were eugenicists. And eugenicists are not killing people or killing babies because of some political issue. They are on a mission to purify.
In 1966, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. received the Planned Parenthood Maggie Award in honor of Margaret Sanger. He accepted that award, but little known to him, the agenda of Planned Parenthood under the guise of the Birth Control League was to really go in and destroy babies, especially what was called Negro babies at the time.
Where's Planned Parenthood located? In the inner city. Who's living in the inner city? The urban community, primarily black, Hispanic.
It's about empowering an organization that makes a lot of money from having abortions. You know, it's actually kind of funny when you think of Planned Parenthood and the rhetoric about reducing abortions, although their entire revenue stream, in large part, is from abortion. So it's kind of like Philip Morris saying, you know what, we really want to teach teens not to smoke. No, because your product is a cigarette. You want to sell the cigarette.
If they really believed that abortion was good for women, if they really thought that there was no profit motive, abortion would be free.
People are concerned about their bottom line, and if that's where the money comes in.
There's billions of dollars at stake. They're making billions of dollars doing this.
Somebody somewhere has to cough up cash.
They want more money. They want more of our taxpayer dollars.
They want to encourage as many abortions as possible.
Abortion is a dirty business. It's just a dirty business.
It's birth control after the fact.
Eventually someone's going to have to sound the alarm.
You have violated my civil right.
Violations.
Dilation and evacuation.
Family annihilation.
They want the money.
Abortion.
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 Planned Parenthood.
Planned Parenthood.
Planned Parenthood.
Planned Parenthood.
Planned Parenthood.
What's all this Planned Parenthood talk? Could they really be that bad?
In 1917, a woman named Margaret Sanger started the Birth Control Review. Over the years, it included such literary gems as Birth Control to create a race of thoroughbreds. But she cautioned, "We do not want word to get out that we want to exterminate the Negro population." But she wasn't just against black people. No, she was a proponent of negative eugenics. She wanted to take all the illiterate, poor, disabled, and mentally handicapped people in the U.S., sterilize them, and put them on farms out in the country, so they wouldn't bother any of the normal white people. She explained all of this in a lecture to the Ku Klux Klan. In 1921, Miss Sanger formed the American Birth Control League, and in 1942, they changed their name to Planned Parenthood. Following in the footsteps of their founder, they set up shop in the poorest, most desperate neighborhoods across the country, where they performed upwards of 300,000 abortions each year. Get your gift certificate or coupon today!
Wow, it seems like abortion was a way to snuff out minorities. Now that we have a black president, I wonder what he thinks about Planned Parenthood.
There will always be people, many of goodwill, who do not share my view on the issue of choice. On this fundamental issue, I will not yield, and Planned Parenthood will not yield.
No matter who I talk to about my story, there's always one name that comes up: Norma McCorvey, probably better known as Jane Roe.
Norma McCorvey, who was Jane Roe in the infamous Roe v. Wade decision of 1973, was living a very hard life. She was a single mother. She was drug addicted, alcoholic. She was discovered by a couple of lawyers from New York who said to her, Norma, you are perfectly positioned to help us to get abortion legalized in America.
The Roe v. Wade case was based upon a lie. First of all, that she was raped, and she wasn't. She later admitted that she wasn't, and that she wanted an abortion. And of course, the attorneys lied to her, telling her that she could get an abortion to entice her to file the case.
They needed a face of the movement. They needed someone who could be manageable.
She wasn't really welcomed into the celebrations after the court case happened. She was sort of ousted from them.
Back in, I believe, the mid-'80s, she realized that she had a lot in her life that needed to transform.
As often happens when people have a life-changing experience like that, her worldview on the abortion issue changed. She's now one of the major pro-life advocates.
The very woman who brought abortion to the entire psyche of a nation is the very woman who's today fighting for the very life of each and every unborn child.
Did she actually ever have an abortion?
She never did have an abortion.
So what happened to that baby?
That baby was given up for adoption.
I carried my baby to full term, and I gave her up for adoption. And I'm happy that I did.
We're going to return with a lot more on this movie and giving you this unique perspective, but I want to tell you what we'd like to do right now. As you hear these stories and as you see this report, we think it's time to defund Planned Parenthood, especially with the Gosnell trial that is concluded up in Pennsylvania and all of the statements that Planned Parenthood has made over the years and their history. The fact that we're funding them is ridiculous. So I want to encourage you to have your taxpayer dollars stop being used to support Planned Parenthood. Call us at 1-877-989-2255. The number's right there on your screen. 877-989-2255 and add your name to the petition to stop funding Planned Parenthood. You can also go to aclj.org and sign the petition there. So it's aclj.org or 877-989-2255. Take action now.
What's unfolding in a Philadelphia courtroom is horrific. Graphic testimony about the abhorrent procedures performed by abortionist Kermit Gosnell, dismembering children after they are born. But here's the truth. Planned Parenthood has argued in the Florida legislature for the right to do exactly what Gosnell did, kill a child after it is born if the mother and doctor agree. And now we discover the Planned Parenthood knew about Gosnell's horrifying clinic where women died and baby after baby was killed after they were born. They knew and they did nothing, leaving it up to Gosnell's victims to come forward. There's no excuse for this atrocity, and there's no excuse for the fact that Planned Parenthood gets almost half of its budget from the American taxpayer. The ACLJ is battling back, challenging the abortion giant in court and working aggressively on Capitol Hill and in state legislatures to defund them. Add your name by calling 1-877-989-2255 or online, aclj.org.
Whenever I started talking about my story, I found lots of people out there like me, even Grammy award-winning musicians like Israel Houghton.
My mother was 17, my mother's white, my father is black. Waterloo, Iowa, 1970. She fell in love with this black guy, man, and got pregnant at 17 and had to confront just life at that point. And it was widely advised that she have an abortion. She ended up facing it and just said, hey, I'm pregnant and I'm gonna keep this baby, and here we go. My mom was like a straight up hippie, homeless, penniless, and pregnant. The state of California said to her, you're completely unfit to be a mother. So we're gonna take your child the day he's born. And then through a series of events, you know, she had me. Her sister really fought hard, fought the state. And, you know, within a year's time, everything changed. My mother married my stepfather, who's been my dad my whole life. And I've been able to sort of live out that dream, you know, because of that decision that she made.
We are a generation that was born after 1973. So I've heard a lot of students say, wow, I could have been very easily aborted. And that's something that kind of resonates with our generation, that at any moment, our parents could have walked in and done away with us, and we would have never existed.
One of the biggest questions in this entire debate is, when does life begin?
At what point does a zygote become a human being? At the moment of conception? Where in the physiological, sociological, psychological development of the unborn can we really say this is a human being? And the response that I generally get after listening to all the arguments, nobody can answer with absolute certainty.
Medical experts from Harvard and Yale and Oxford University have said the unborn child, the so-called fetus, feels pain. They could tell this because they're applying anesthesia during the procedures now so that the child doesn't react, because they see the ultrasounds and they see the child reacting to the pain stimuli.
So somewhere between that point and conception, something happened. Can you tell me where that is? Answer is, no, I can't. Nobody can ascertain that. Fine. Then there's always the possibility that you're committing murder. You know, because you have no evidence to the contrary.
As far as stages go in understanding embryonic development, we've known how embryos develop for 100 years. This is a reprint from an insert in Life magazine from 1965. So here again, we've known the truth. Now, this is over 40 years old. And so we've known what embryonic development looked like. We've known when the heart starts beating, when the limb buds form, as you see here at 5 weeks. We've known this for over 40 years. And we haven't improved on this at all in terms of, this is something we're still using. And it's highly valuable because it is the truth. This is the truth. Like it or not, that's the truth.
I believe that life begins with the fertilization of the egg and sperm. I think that's the beginning of life, and And that's what most scientists believe. Now, there's a whole different issue about consciousness and the soul and all of that kind of thing, but I believe that human life really begins at the very, very beginning.
I was in college. I went to Tufts University up in Medford, Massachusetts, and most people don't know that abortion was legal in some states in 1972 before Roe v. Wade. And New York was one of the states that had legalized abortion. And I actually flew from Boston to New York and had the abortion. I had choice because I knew my mom would have taken the baby. I knew that. But I was grown. And so I didn't want the baggage, in all honesty, of having a child while I was in college, because I had a vision for my life and it didn't include children. It was a very horrific experience for me. It was not this, it's nothing like, more than pulling a tooth. That is a total lie. When I got up from the table, they gave me cookies and juice to drink, and they let you lay there for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes before they shepherded you out and herded in the next group. And when I stood up, their sugar and cookies didn't work, and I fainted. And I think I fainted because of the horror of what I had done. I knew it was a baby. I knew it was another life. And so I just was heartless. And I think that's the case for many of us. It's just selfishness. It's just heartlessness. It's just, I can't be bothered right now. And I think that we just don't want to face the lie because we know. And I think if you ask any woman that's ever killed her baby, she'll tell you, I knew.
We have a lot more ahead with Life Happens, our special ACLJ film, but I want to encourage you right now to go to your phones and say, you know what, I don't want my taxpayer dollars being utilized for Planned Parenthood, for abortion. Call us at 1-877-989-2255 to add your name to this petition. That's 877-989-2255 or aclj.org. Again, that's aclj.org or 877-989-2255. Back with more in a moment.
What's unfolding in a Philadelphia courtroom is horrific. Graphic testimony about the abhorrent procedures performed by abortionist Kermit Gosnell, dismembering children after they are born. But here's the truth. Planned Parenthood has argued in the Florida legislature for the right to do exactly what Gosnell did, kill a child after it is born if the mother and doctor agree. And now we discover that Planned Parenthood knew about Gosnell's horrifying clinic where women died and baby after baby was killed after they were born. They knew and they did nothing, leaving it up to Gosnell's victims to come forward. There's no excuse for this atrocity, and there's no excuse for the fact that Planned Parenthood gets almost half of its budget from the American taxpayer. The ACLJ is battling back, challenging the abortion giant in court and working aggressively on Capitol Hill and in state legislatures to defund them. Add your name by calling 1-877-989-2255 or online, aclj.org.
It's not just a political issue, it's an issue where the court has enmeshed itself in its own precedent. Now they've done that before and it hasn't worked out too well. Dred Scott's a perfect example where black citizens weren't entitled to any protection. Slaves were considered property, not human beings. The Karematsu case where the United States government interred Japanese American citizens in basically camps. The court then says, oh, that's wrong. So the court does reverse itself.
But we cannot underestimate the value of these state laws that have been passing over the last 36 years since Roe versus Wade, because the abortion rate dropped 18% in the 1990s.
Every bill that I've ever introduced specifically said that we don't want to do anything to criminalize or punish the mother, because they are the ones that are victims here, just like the baby is.
Ultimately, yes, this is a cultural argument that results in legislation. And the legislation is meant for good, not to punish women, not to punish men, but to preserve and protect the most valuable resource that any nation has, and that's its people and the potential of its people.
It's a human rights issue. It should be an international human rights issue. It's a fundamental right to life. You look at the Declaration of Independence, look at the European Convention on Human Rights, you look at all of these documents, what do you see? This fundamental protection of life.
It's getting harder and harder to defend the pro-abortion position. All they can rely on is the law and the still rather secretive practice of a very suspect wing of the medical trade.
Is this a human being or is this not a human being? If you can't answer the question, you have to err on the side of life. You cannot err on the side of death and call yourself moral.
I feel that the greatest destroyer of peace today is abortion. It is really a war against the child, a direct killing of the innocent child, murder by the mother herself.
And then, with almost tears in her eyes, she pled with people, whoever is listening to me, if you have a child, bring the child to me. I'll take the child. I'll take that baby.
I was born to a mother who was not supposed to be able to have a child and had actually adopted a child 14 years previous, had gone through a divorce. It was just a single mother actually away from her husband and her child. And she was a practical nurse caring for an elderly man, and in that family there was an alcoholic son. And he came in and forced his physical affections on her. And unbelievably, some would have said tragically, she conceived. And when she found herself with such minimal income and no husband, no real stable home, in 1943 she went to have an abortion. And she went to a doctor who said, I can't do it, I won't do it. I was born because a doctor had some conviction and a child that was unexpected, unwanted, unplanned for. The result of a forced relationship was born. And Betty and I are my wife of more than 46 years now. We're privileged to have 3 children. We've shared joy all over the world because someone believed that all life is valuable. I'm sure there are a lot of people in the pro-abortion movement that think I'm one of their best arguments for abortion. The stands that I've taken against certain practices and a lack of principle and a lack of appreciation for the value of life.
It wouldn't matter if I was pro-choice, pro-life, or just didn't care. Every single day of my life, whether I realize it or not, I'm impacted by another kid who was unwanted and unplanned. It's incredible to think about what those other accidents have given us.
The fact of the matter is, the world has suffered because of the loss of people that have been aborted. There's no doubt about it. But we need to celebrate the fact that some women made the hard and really difficult choice from the societal pressure they were under in carrying that child to term, and then you see the results of that.
If you are pregnant, if there's a pregnant couple out there, there's definitely options out there besides abortion.
There are many, many people who would take your little one if it's too much of a burden for you to carry.
If you're saving one life, it's worth it.
I am like skin, like feel me. I am a good decision that worked out. You know, it's all right.
These kids are our future. They're the ones who will grow up and be our leaders. And we need to give them a shot. They're people too.
Everybody's perfect. Everybody's perfect. And everybody's imperfect. You know, so looking at it that way, you know, it's really hard to kind of put yourself above anyone or think, well, you know, I'm sure happy that, you know, we're all in this together.
I hope that we're more welcoming to unborn babies, and especially the medical profession, because they've played, I think, too big a role in facilitating this abortion on demand.
We should be very aware on every level of government as to what legislation is going to affect the life, the liberty, and the pursuit of happiness of all people.
We can try to legislate certain things, but ultimately it comes back to people and their heart and them making choices in their lives.
If we would reach out in love and compassion, we could solve this very real issue.
If you're just completely open-minded about it and study the law, there's only one conclusion.
I have never been more optimistic about seeing an end to abortion than I am right now at this moment. And the main reason is this emerging generation.
I think we're seeing the death throes of abortion as sanctioned by society. I truly do.
I think that we need every American, whether you're a filmmaker, a doctor, a lawyer, a school teacher, whatever it is you do. You own a restaurant, you own a trucking, whatever you do. We all have civic duty, right? We're responsible for the laws of our land. This is a constitutional republic. The buck stops with each and every one of us.
We need a change in our heart and in our minds concerning the value of life. Frankly, I can't even imagine that being a difficult change.
When any child is conceived, there's a reason and there's a purpose for it. And you never know what their life's going to be like. They could be the next president.
In a perfect world, all children would be planned. People who weren't in a position to have a baby wouldn't. There would be no rape, incest, or deformities. But we don't live in a perfect world. And sometimes life happens.
That's going to do it for this very special edition of an ACLJ film called Life Happens. More information about that film and the full over hour long version of it available at aclj.org. You can get the information there. But again, I want to encourage you to add your name to a petition well over 120,000 signatures to defund Planned Parenthood. Call us at 1-877-989-2255. That's 877-989-2255 or aclj.org. That's aclj.org or 1-877-989-2255.
What's unfolding in a Philadelphia courtroom is horrific. Graphic testimony about the abhorrent procedures performed by abortionist Kermit Gosnell, dismembering children after they are born. But here's the truth. Planned Parenthood has argued in the Florida legislature for the right to do exactly what Gosnell did. Kill a child after it is born if the mother and doctor agree. And now we discover that Planned Parenthood knew about Gosnell's horrifying clinic where women died and baby after baby was killed after they were born. They knew and they did nothing, leaving it up to Gosnell's victims to come forward. There's no excuse for this atrocity, and there's no excuse for the fact that Planned Parenthood gets almost half of its budget from the American taxpayer. The ACLJ is battling back, challenging the abortion giant in court and working aggressively on Capitol Hill and in state legislatures to defund them. Add your name by calling 1-877-989-2255 or online, aclj.org.